Of course, we need to give due credit to the rivals. McLaren and Mercedes have improved a lot, and this can't be ignored or downplayed. We're talking specifically about Red Bull, okay? We're talking specifically about a rumor that change in regulation directly affected this system that Red Bull was using, and that's why Red Bull is having a bit more difficulty in braking, which impacts lap time, wear, as I mentioned to you. In short, the whole ecosystem of the car, everything you need in qualifying, in a race. And this would have been one of the factors that contributed to the season becoming more interesting. The growth of McLaren and Mercedes are the other factors as well, and quite possibly more impactful than this Red Bull system, if this system really existed and was removed. And that's what we're seeing, performance dropping and so on. So the FIA just didn't want to tell everyone that someone was using this system, partly because it was legal at the beginning of the year. Red Bull wasn't illegal, it was legal. It was within the rules. But if it wasn't this, at some point someone will come out saying what happened to Red Bull for it to lose so much performance like this. And there's already a conversation from Pierre Wache that has an article from Automotor Unsport, an interview with him where he talks about several things, and one of them is a problem related to Max Verstappen. I'm going to set this aside to talk about in another video, because it's also a subject that we're going to develop a bit more based on Pierre's speech, okay? Red Bull's decline is indeed related to a modification in the brakes, or more precisely in the braking system, which has to do with the regulation change regarding asymmetric braking that we've discussed on this channel before. Let's talk about this now so you can understand the possibility being put forward by the media. Red Bull went from a dominant start to the season to a moment where they haven't won in 4 races, and are clearly seeing Mercedes and McLaren take the spotlight. Let's look at what Jake's article is telling us. Basically, there's a direct relationship between the change in asymmetric braking regulations that we've mentioned here on the channel, and that Tiago from Formula Brum talked about on his channel, and here on the recap, and Red Bull's performance. So what's this all about? Speaking more directly about the regulation change, any system or mechanism that can systematically or intentionally produce asymmetric braking torques on a particular axle is now prohibited under the updated rule. So you can't have anything that gives an axle an asymmetric braking torque that works intentionally or systematically. According to Jake's sources at Racing News and others, remember to treat this as a rumor, folks. I have this responsibility to you. We know Formula One is a sport of much speculation because a lot is hidden from the public, which is obvious due to competition. But this is a rumor. It may or may not be true. It's saying that Red Bull was mounting an inertial valve or inertial switch, depending on what you call it in your region, in the braking system section at the rear. In other words, this system existed there and was part of the solution for the electronic brake system, for example. In practice, the T-connected valve received a single hydraulic pressure directed to the rear axle by the electronic brake, but it could be precisely directed with more pressure to the left or right of the rear axle, depending on which direction the car was turning. This is very important. We're talking about a system that could identify where the car is turning and modify this pressure accordingly. What's the practical impact of this? This valve or switch is not part of the component supplied by Brembo, for example. So Brembo is out of the picture here, and it's just Red Bull. It also doesn't modify the basic characteristics in terms of safety. This needs to be said. This valve only has its function when the car approaches the entry phase of corners because that's when it can better direct its pressure. When the car is in a straight line, there's no need to direct because the pressure is identical between left and right. And the advantages this system could provide to Red Bull are mainly in car handling. The precision in corners becomes much better and understeer disappears, meaning the car becomes much more controllable. If the car was nervous before, you now have a car that's much more in hand during braking and consequently at the apex and corner exits. And then you impact a series of other factors as well. Brake temperature, tire wear. In short, you have a series of factors that are affected if you have much better braking. And curiously, these are characteristics that the RB20 has been losing. When I say characteristics it's been losing, it means that it behaved very well in braking and has been losing this power, this positive characteristic over time. Especially when we see that directive that was updated that I just told you about. Not a directive, right? The rule, it wasn't a directive. At the beginning of the season, this system was legal precisely because of this regulation that wasn't updated. From the moment it was updated, the system becomes illegal. And this would once again be in line with the news that came out a while back that one team was indeed using it, and this team could be Red Bull. So the pieces fit in this puzzle. Remembering it's a rumor, we can't state that this is it, but the pieces at least make sense in this article that's in the description. So the car's dynamics were altered, and consequently you see that the drivers have been struggling more and haven't been able to have the car so much in hand, especially in braking. It's as if the driver had lost confidence in the car. Before he could do it one way, now he can't anymore. So this dialogue that existed between the front and rear configuration no longer exists. It's a puzzle for Red Bull, for its engineers, because now they'll have to develop another solution to get the car back to the way it was at the beginning of the season.